Oh, today's episode is a special episode as we are joined by the incredible Flex Lewis. And I mean, 7-time Mr. Olympian, but actually one of my dear friends. And this man is one of the most incredible men that I've ever met. One of the most incredibly driven, wise, successful, just fucking badasses. And when I'm in his presence, I just feel better as a human being. And he is literally one of the world's best. And we got into it. I recorded this episode with him in his studio in Vegas. And oh my goodness, do I love it. We talk about the power of remaining consistent as a 7-time Mr. Olympia with the desire to be the best as opposed to average. We talk about how each title he holds has a why attached that drove him to the finish line. We talk about the power of starting from scratch, coming into the U.S. from Wales to all-time 7-time Mr. Olympia. And boy, oh boy, if you want to hear a story, this is the story. We talk about having a relationship with resistance and pretending it's not there, and how investing in yourself as if you've already achieved it is the secret. And I'm telling you right now, this man has more people that I know, more famous people, celebrities, people that I look up to calling him for advice because his mindset and his ability, like he's a champion through and through his core. And now watching him be a champion father and a champion husband and a champion for helping other people achieve the same is mind blowing to me. And it is humbling and an honor to be in his presence and to call him as a friend. And so give this episode a listen because this thing is incredible. So without further ado, let's get into the show with the incredible, incredible Flex Lewis. All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Mind of George Show from a little bit of a different location, but we are in studio live in the Dragon's Lair itself, and today's guest shouldn't need an introduction, but for those of you who don't know, just world champion at everything in life, incredible friend, father, husband, man, leader, has just been a pioneer in so many things, somebody that I'm incredibly blessed to have a very deep connected relationship with. I bet on his podcast as well. And just a man of so many talents, of so many incredible viewpoints, and incredibly hard to understand most of the time. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Flex Lewis.
Oh, that was an intro for me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, so many lies, George.
I know. Well, I got to get you going a little bit here.
Jeez. No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And even though you're introducing me on my mics and in my office, it's kind of a, bit of a wild one, but great to have myself on your show, on my show.
I know.
That makes sense.
It's like a little environmental design trick because you're so comfortable, you can just talk more in your studio.
Ah, you psychological fucker, you.
It's
You got me.
Little warfare.
Yeah, you got me good. No, I'm very comfortable in this spot. Now, had I sat in that chair, that would have been a completely different spin on life. But no, thank you, mate. It's as you said, you've been on my show, but the novelty of me flying to Montana is soon to come. So we'll put that part 2.
We will, because we still got to do part 2 for yours because we went.
I know we did.
We went there. Went there. So, for a lot of my listeners, I actually talked about our show quite a bit, referenced it and shared it, so they might know. But I think for anybody, just to kind of give context, I don't even know how to give accolades for kind of what you've achieved, right? You've been in this game for so long and you've done so many incredible things. But what I would love to hear from you is looking back, you have the Olympia titles, you have everything. How would you describe kind of how you got here?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's the description, I guess, how did I get here? Well, there's a lot of people that have played massive roles in my life. I want to make that clear right now. Obviously, my parents being, the contributor to to this machine that went on, to do many different things. But I think my humble beginnings most certainly have aided this process. Seeing what my mom and dad done for us kids, seeing, what my dad done in work. We do literally a 12-hour shift and go back in for another 12 hours just so us kids could go on a school trip or get uniform. And all these things now as I'm 39 years old and have 2 kids of my own, you truly value and understand the sacrifice that my parents done for us brothers. So knowing, subconsciously and consciously growing up, I knew that wasn't a lifestyle for me. Seeing my parents struggle, every penny was counted for. Every dime, no pun intended, was saved, scrounged together, and it was used for something.
Yep.
And that humble upbringing truly has projected me onto, so many different paths, and got me through some dark times.
Yeah.
My drive to grow business or grow in wealth, grow in X, Y, Z, has been all contributed through, like I said, my parents and the upbringing I had. So when I came to the United States, first of all, and I'm leaving obviously out big stories, but generally, there's many times that I could have come back home. My mum and dad welcomed me, but in with both hands every time I spoke to them. I only give them the advice. I only give them the news of what was happening, what wasn't happening, and it could be in a catastrophe week. There might have been, money issues, whatever it was. I was sleeping on a sofa. Not that my parents knew that at the time, but every time I spoke to my mum, everything is great. I had a photo shoot today, and when I say photo shoot, probably somebody took me on their roll up, one of them disposable cameras, waiting for print.
We were pre-smartphone back then.
Yeah, pre-smartphone. What a life!
I know.
But again, them days of not giving up. Now that I look back, were definitely more the conversations every time I had.
I'm gonna start picking this apart in it because the amount of things there, but like even at that age, like when you came here, not achieving, like you're not at the top, you're just from humble beginnings, but you're driven internally, and you're calling your mother when you're literally in the shit, and holding that front, but like there's this belief underneath that. Like, where did that belief come from, or what did that feel like? Or were you just so driven and clear, you're like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes?
I think I've had this conversation many times with many different people. I think looking back, and I can say this now from the chair that I'm sitting in, what a ballsy, gutsy kid. It's not me now. People can say, oh, what a cocky guy for saying that, but it was a completely different person. This was a 19-year-old kid who had this passion, this drive to be to potentially become good in a sport that was dominated by Ronnie Coleman. Now, for every one of the viewers who have not seen Ronnie Coleman, he's greatest of all time. You're talking about somebody who is lean and winning shows at 290 pounds, and here's this kid who's 180 pounds soaking wet, saying he's going to be standing next to these guys and holding his own. In the mindset of that monster, it was a delusional and achievable goal. And I say that with a little bit of laughter, but it truly was, because I wouldn't be where I am right now if I didn't have that mindset. It was tenacious. It was, turning up every single day, proving myself. And also there's other contributing things that happened back then. My nickname, Flex. There was a bodybuilder unknown to me at the time called Flex Wheeler, also known as one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. His nickname, and me getting into the sport, was very shunned upon. Oh, we've already got a Flex. Well, what do? Change my name? So I was fighting that battle simultaneously, as well as, being around, the gym around all these monsters in Fullerton, California. So what I done, George, and for the viewers listening, I knew one person, and that one person was one of the older owners of Gold's Gym. He sold Gold's Gym, but he invited me over to Santa Monica, California. This gentleman changed the sport, just along with Joey. What he done was find diamonds in the rough, find athletes who were winning shows or had the potential to, brought them to Santa Monica, California, and literally housed them. in this house. There was no bells and whistles to this. This guy was a multi-millionaire, very successful. And, it doesn't smell of shadiness either for everybody who's kind of like, oh, that sounds a little fucking weird. But he truly was, a unique unicorn in this world, where he would find athletes for bodybuilding and also find wrestlers for WWE.
Yeah.
So he had a relationship with Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon. Kind of a scout in a way, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't have to do it. This was all free and love. So he had brought many people over. In fact, his first guest was Sting and Ultimate Warrior, two idols that I followed when I was a kid. And I was put in this house along with other professional athletes, professional bodybuilders. And I was told the gym is X amount of miles away. You can take the bike or you can walk. And he lived on the boardwalk to Santa Monica. So I would walk every day. I mean, you damn well know it's people watching is one of my favorite things. In Santa Monica,
that is the best.
Venice Beach has got some of the best, people watching
live comedy show
live. And back then it wasn't as crazy as what it is right now. Of course, the floodgates open.
I wouldn't walk there now.
No, it was safe.
It was
kind
safe.
of like a safe, bag of nuts. But I would get to Gold's Gym, and every single day I would train around the greatest. I would see who was there. Everything from Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold, Sylvester Stallone, and the movie side of things, to wrestling heroes of mine of old, to then the bodybuilding guys.
Yeah.
And it was my first chance to really gauge these guys in the flesh, not a magazine. So truly, I was walking into a magazine every single day. And as the years went on, Gold's Gym slowly started regressing with the quality of athletes that were there, because with the internet, you didn't have to be in Gold's Gym.
Yep.
You didn't have to be where all the photographers are. So then I started hearing rumors and whispers about this gym in Fullerton, California. So, at that point in time, I was staying with a friend in Santa Monica. I packed my bags and I was like, I've got to find this gym. So knowing nothing about traffic in LA, I jumped on the 405 at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there I was until 6. I finally get to this gym, and truly that was like a magazine. And that gym was Milo Sachev's Fullerton gym called Coliseum Gym. So walking into that place, it was a photo shoot every single day. I truly got to see the best of the best, and I knew I had to be there. So from driving from Santa Monica up and back and forth from Fullerton, I knew the best times to go, even though it was like a round trip of 3 hours.
Yep.
I got friendly with a younger guy in the gym, and he literally said, when you just move up, and he was living on student, the geographical area of him being a student and also head of housing.
Okay.
I found a loophole.
Yep.
And he offered me a sofa, a sticky old hand-me-down sofa that was kind of in leather in some places, fake leather, and then worn away in others. That kind, just like that shit will rip you apart when you sit in it. I slept on that.
Okay.
No money for AC, and I slept on that sofa for a year and a half, turned up at the gym twice a day. And in that year and a half and turning up twice a day, I earned the respect of these athletes who are now my friends to call me Flex. A lot of these guys came from the generation of Flex Wheeler and refused to call me Flex. So what I done was, I will win you over by sweat equity, by putting my hat back to front and training alongside you. I will earn that. And that's what I done. And as the time went on, as I picking up in the story about calling my mum, there was no bullying or anything of that nature, but there was a certain stereotype placed upon me because of the nickname. And over time, I was fighting this, along with fighting the element of going back home. And I was like, no, this is the journey I've picked. And money was tight. Every time I went home, I was literally home for maybe a month. I'd save up, come back over with whatever, a couple $100, whatever it was. And I made that last $1 truly stretched. And that's one of the reasons why, going full circle now, George, I sit in the seat I'm sitting in, and blessed to have, a gym and many different elements that have been acquired through leveling up in life. But I also have never forgotten what it's like to wake up in the morning, look at a bank account and realize there's nothing in there.
Yeah.
Look at my wallet and realize, shit, this is what I got to survive on.
Yeah.
A can of tuna had to be divided into many different meals, and right now that's one meal. So I remember that like very vividly. I also know what it took for me to go through that to get on that first peg. And it's somewhat of a fear of mine in life to go back to them humble days, even though there's so many firewalls that have been placed along the way. There's still that I've not allowed myself to feel like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like shit can hit the fan.
Oh yeah.
But so I guess what I'm trying to say is, because of that, I'm still on the gas. I'm still like trying to open new opportunities, create new ventures. I like this though. I like the feeling of being like that.
Yeah.
But I also know like there's times when I wake up and I'm like, oh shit, I could lose it all. You know?
No, I think it's healthy. I think you have to have a relationship with it, right? Especially given the state of the world.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
true.
You don't really know. I think all too often. Well, and this ties into so much to what you said. Real quick though, before I say that, in that time period when you were like sleeping on that sofa and in that house in Santa Monica, like, how long was that period of you like earning that sweat equity until it like got to what would say like sustainable, to where like you were supported in doing it?
I'll tell you a story, R.I.P. now, but Tom Prince, remember Tom Prince? He was known for his incredible leg development, stupid hamstrings.
Yes.
So he was one of them guys that I kind of had like, wow, legs, right? There's certain guys I looked at and I was like, man, I wish I had X. But then he was a bodybuilder that was connected to that body part, right? Tom Prince was hamstrings. He had these unbelievable sagging hamstrings from the side. I got to meet Tom, and he refused to call me Flex. Refused. He'd call me James. I hate being called James. It's like my wife and my mum and a few other people can call me James. But even when I'm going through TSA, it's Stephen, because of my name on my passport is Stephen James Lewis. Yeah. Just for the fans and viewers listening to this. But when I would be called James, I was like, oh my God. And I was like, you know, when somebody is kept on doing something and you don't like, and it's like, oh my, I'm going to bite my tongue because this is Tom Prince. And in the end, I was like, bro, I don't like being called James. And he goes, the day you win your pro card, the day you win your pro show, I call you Flex. Okay, so won my pro card, and the one thing that was missing was being called Flex. And I just remember not seeing Tom for probably a couple of months at this point in time. I went back to Santa Monica Golds. I got my pro card. I walk into the firehouse because I used to have dinner with Bob Chick, Tom Prince, and then my friend Scott at least 2-3 times a week. So I'd see these guys all the time. You know, it was either in the gym or it was in the firehouse when we'd eat them, but the majority of the time it was in the firehouse. And I got to know these guys on a personal level, right? And Tom was going through his health issues. And we talk, and he was more into the business element now of the sport, which I loved listening to. And as I said, I returned back to Santa Monica. I walk into the firehouse, and I just see this guy, and I hear this guy. Walk in further. It's like, Tom Prince's. He's like, Flex. Hey, Flex, come over here. I'm like, yes. Not a word was mentioned.
Nope.
Nobody said, I told you. Nobody said, you know, whatever it could be, right? Yeah. And nor did I say, thanks, Tom. But it was like an understanding. And I sat at that dinner table and I kind of looked at him. And I was like, yes. Because everything then become the overuse of Flex.
Yes.
Hey, Flex, how's you? You know what I mean? So, obviously, you know, that was for me a very memorable occasion, because that guy truly said, I'm not calling you Flex until X. Yep. I achieved that, and he was a man of his word. So there was only 1 or 2 people that I really wanted to kind of like win over. He was one of them for personal reasons. But outside of that, I soon realized that if people are talking about you, you're doing something right. Yeah. It took me a while. Yep. But somebody, and I can't give the credit to that person because I can't remember who, but somebody asked me the question of, who's the champion right now? Because I was complaining about being shit talked. Forums are rife. People would talk all kinds of mess on forums. And I said, Ronnie Coleman. I go, who gets the most shit talked about him online? I was like, Ronnie Coleman. He's There we are then. So shut the fuck up. Who are you? You're not even on one peg.
Yeah.
And there's the greatest of all time, and they're talking about XYZ about him. So get used to it, kid. And I was like, wow. And I don't know what it was, but that conversation hit home. And as the years has gone by, you kind of develop thicker skin.
Yeah.
Certain things you still, certain conversations you still look at and, I have to reply back to some assholes. No offense.
Yeah.
You ain't slipping past that comment.
Yeah. No.
But for the most part, if somebody's talking to you or talking shit about you, then you're on their radar enough to upset them, to go out of their way to waste a minute, 2 minutes on writing out this post of how shit the human being you are, or how your name is, he fucking sucks. Yeah. Or I'm like, man, is that what your life is worth? And then you realize, yes.
Yeah.
That's what you're up to right now in your life. And these are the people, unfortunately, that are out there. But yeah, I don't even know if I answered your question. I went way off the fucking point.
Actually, it makes a valid point, and it leads to a really important question, because I feel like even in you sharing that, you heard that pretty early on.
Yeah.
Because the world that you excelled in is a world that is built on criticism, and if you take it personally, you lose. And so hearing that early makes sense, because we talk about this a lot, and when we did your show on like, the further you get along in your path, the harder and further the inches are to gain, right? And like those times that like you didn't win or didn't get the podium or didn't get blank, especially even in the early on days, like you have to be able to look at that and be like, where do I go back to work? Where do I go fix those things? And you had that from a very early on stage. But like when you think about, because like you excelled on so many levels, like you with the mindset, and I'm sure everybody listening to this can hear this, right? It sounds like very rooted in like why it matters to you, right? Like you come from family, humbly beginning, so like your why is there, and then that internally motivates you, and then you'll use some external stuff for force and fuel. But like the things that you achieved took so much time, right? And you've remained consistent over time, like to a degree that is admirable, because it's something that like I strive to be able to do. How did you remain so consistent? Like what are the things that allowed you to either stay focused like that, or to remain that, or even after getting your pro card or getting your first Olympia and literally like the floodgates open on the internet, right? And no matter how thick of skin you have, when there's millions of people going and you're like, okay, let's get back to work, right? And I know it's so simple to chunk it down, but like you talk about it like it's easy for most people. And I'm like, yeah, because most people are the 7-time 212 Mr. Olympia and all the other ones I'm missing, right? So like, what do you attribute to that? Or where do you think mindset played a part of that? Or where did you focus the most to be able to remain that consistent over such a long period of time?
Good question. I don't think I've really put much reflection into that. Obviously, we've talked about mindset as kind of a trending thing on my podcast. I'm very intrigued with the element of what made you great, like what sparked something to put you into this trajectory. For me, if I take myself right back, I always wanted to be the best at everything I ever done. There was never a time where I was like, let me try this. I never had that mentality. Yep. And I'm not trying to now say this like because it's, 2 decades, 3 decades later. It truly was the mindset I had. Like, I wanted to learn enough about something so that I could be the best at that. I didn't want to learn about something and then participate in it. I wanted to be the best rugby player. I wanted to be the fastest sprinter. I wanted to be, the best gymnast. It was so many boxes ticked. I've also put myself into many different scenarios of old, but there was no option. I came here, even though I had a return, because legally you have to have a return, but in my head, this was all or nothing. Yeah. It was like, you are going in and you are going to win. You are going to fall on your sword if you don't. But I think with with everything I've done and I've achieved, I've always created a why.
Yep.
There's always a driving force.
Yep.
And that why then, as the years got, on, and I started to, just to say the first title, every one of them titles has a why.
Yep.
There's also a lot of things that changed in that process. I came to this country as a one-man band. Mm-hmm. Over the years, I've been in different relationships and stuff like that, but until I met my wife, that solidified a lot of different things, like her strengths are not mine and mine are not hers. She came into, this relationship seeing me in at a very early growth stage, but on a trajectory to something. I made it known that, listen, this relationship I have to focus on. This is my one shot. I'm in this very critical stage where I have the support. I have the backing of big sponsors. I also have an opportunity to be the first ever 212 champ. And this was a class that wasn't created when Ronnie Coleman was around. So for the viewers that are watching this, they created this kind of like a lighter weight that was to the open weight. Mm-hmm. And that lighter weight was capped at 212 pounds. And at that time, I was coming out from the created 202, which is 1 season, or 2 seasons actually, to this now. This is the future, and 212 is going to be the category cap. And I was on the lighter side of things. So my mindset was to be the first ever 212 class champion, the Mr. Olympia champion, and defend that. So to answer your question, in now going all over the place, but the mindset I had from a young age, certainly, and the drive I had certainly was there. I still see recognizable attributes in the younger version of myself, but now it's more of a streamlined version.
Yeah.
There's details attached to the why.
Yeah.
There's now things that have gone on the older I am, when I've truly invested in me. Before it was like, I'm doing me on a budget.
Yep.
I made money, I invested into me.
Yep.
Instead of seeing guys who made some money, they'd invest in fucking 22-inch rims on their car. I was like, that's the note I'm not going.
Yeah.
I'm going to put it into me and invest into me, whether that was creating a website, which was creating a brand, which was, I had the brand, excuse me. I say emphasis on the brand.
Yeah, I think, well, in hearing you, because as much as you think you're all over the place, you're not. The one thing that you called out and you talked about is that, like, under every single thing that you get clear on, you have a why.
Yes.
And, like, that's one thing that, like, as somebody who loves you dearly, like, I see it, right? Because I watch you from the outside. You also won't dive into something unless you are clear, which means that you've thought enough to have that why, because you'll have an idea and it will excite you, but then you'll sit with it and you'll sit with it. And then you, until it either sparks that, like, oh, this makes sense. Yeah. And I think I watch it through the filter of, like, is this really going to excite me? Is this something I'm passionate about? And so from the outside looking in as your friend, it's really easy to see because you align yourself to only things that you're passionate about because you have a why underneath them. And so then when it gets hard, or when the resistance comes, it was never about the result. It was only about the why. Mm. And so immediately you're like, well, get that thing out of the way. Get that thing out of the way. That's the first thing I heard. And then the second thing, and I you've been saying this throughout the entire episode so far, and you echo this, and I see this in your life, is that not once have you ever thought about or assumed you could or would do this alone. Because at every single point, when you have the goal and you have the why, you also have one critical person or a few near you that are either intrinsically motivating you, supporting you, seeing you, or challenging you at every single point for accountability.
I think, you know why, George? There's so many people that would allow me to accept my demise before I even began. They would quite easily cheer me on and say, it wasn't meant to be.
Yes.
Or, they would say something like, well, you're from Wales, that's an American sport. whatever that would be. But I linked into people of positivity that give me harsh reality. So Neil Hill is my coach for 19 years, 20 years this year.
Wow.
And him and I have this great relationship where now it's different. We have a great relationship right now. But it's also, now that I'm retired, our relationship was split into two. It was Neil Hill coach and then Neil Hill coach friend.
Yep.
And that's a difficult thing for a lot of people. Like a lot of his athletes, you know, excuse you.
Yeah, thank you.
A lot of people that have worked with Neil get the coach friend, and then when they transition into Coach Hill, they have a hard time. Like, I would say the first couple of days of me working with Neil, whatever show it would be, pick your poison up there, it would always be a few days of getting used to it. And even though I knew, like, I've been working with Neil, like, just so the fans and the viewers that are watching this, I've worked with Neil since I was 19 years old, and we went through the entire amateur circuit undefeated. We won the Mr. Wales, Mr. Britain, Mr. Universe, Mr. Europe, and then we came to the US, and they were like, have you won the Mr. USA or the Nationals? Nope. Okay, kid, good luck. You can't compete in the USA or the Nationals. So I came here with this international global sheet of accolades that meant nothing to the US, because unless you won and achieved the USA or the Nationals in the sport of bodybuilding in the US, they don't know, they don't care. Welcome to the club, kid. Get back on stage and earn your stripes. And that's where we were. So going back to what Neil would do, Neil would treat me like that 19-year-old kid every prep.
Yep.
So fast forward 15 years later, and he is talking to me like, I mean, I've got staff, I've got kids now, you know, I've got a wife, and there this guy's telling me, where's my fucking photos? It's 7 o'clock in the morning. I told you. And I'm like, this is the only guy you're allowed to talk to me like this. Just and there'd be the many times where I was like, look at this, babe. Like, I can't deal with this. And then I had to realize, you know, Ali's my biggest supporter. She's also will tell me too straight. She's like, he doesn't mean it like that. Oh, yeah? Exclamation marks. What does that mean? What does that mean? And I'm finding ways to, you know, to get into it. And she's like neutral ground. But you know what, though, George? Which I knew, I realized this, even though I was trying to fight it. But it was only for that, like, 1 week. I've got a coach.
Yep. Not
a cheerleader.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why I've been able to win what I've won, because this guy keeps me accountable to the direction and the focus and the future of what do I want to achieve. Mm-hmm. You know, we came to this country and started from scratch. We had this incredible thirst to become champions in a sport that we're told you're never going to do. You know, this is coming from our first show. So we've had this overarching, you know, stamp put on us of you're never going to achieve it. So we were like, well, we've been told this all the way through, from the very first show to the last show we're stepping on stage. You're never going to do it. So it's like, just keep this fucking show running. Mm-hmm. We have a very interesting dynamic, and again, I have a real coach. But one thing I have to say about Neil is the guy's an incredible professional. The attention to detail he gives all his athletes is second to none. He truly is a unicorn of coaches. And this is for the fans, if I've mentioned Neil, this guy's called Neil Hill. They call him Yoda. And he trains myself along with many different athletes, along with big CEOs for companies like Deloitte, all the way to guys in the WWE like Roman Reigns. Mm-hmm. So he got a diverse palette of athletes, but it all started with me and him. Mm-hmm. So when I came here, he was like, it's okay, find another coach. It's okay, you've got to find an American coach. I was like, hey, hell no. What's wrong with you? The grass isn't greener. We want everything. And I always, from show one, came in shredded. So if it ain't broken, why try and fix it? And I think that's kind of one of my, I guess when I see other people, there's no fucking loyalty.
Number 3 and 4 underneath why you're successful. Number 1 is a why. Number 2 is community. Number 3 is a coach, not an enabler. And then number 4 is the simplicity of the basics and never getting away from them.
Yeah, that's true. If I showed you my early diets, it's of course it's evolved in size of in terms of protein sizes and stuff. I mean, we're talking about my Olympia diet, but you would recognize that was designed by somebody similar. If not, you've taken that diet and made it into your own. You know what I mean? You've looked at this diet on the internet and gone, okay, I'm going to make Neil Hill's diet.
Yep.
Listen, it's KISS, right? Yep. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yep.
These people who are trying to reinvent the wheel of getting in shape, it boils down to your commitment to the task, making a plan to fail, right? There's so many variables that go into this. There's the attention to the detail that's put in. It's making a plan for, a plan after. It's basically everything in business that I've learned from bodybuilding.
Yes.
You want to achieve this number in your bank account? Oh, shit. Here's the steps for that. You want to achieve this house? You want to get be a better X? You set out the plan and then you work backwards. So for us right now, one of the reasons why I've been able to scale these businesses and do what I've done in transition from competing is using the same mindset that I use from a very young age now into all these new endeavors.
Yep.
You know, you can't preach about things not happening when you're not making anything happen. Mm-hmm. So I've seen people time and time again look over, you know, well, figuratively be like, oh, that must be nice. Or, well, if I got paid that, I'd fucking, look at him now with this big fancy house. It's like, all of you can achieve this. The difference is your mindset is easily diverted to the lack of there and not finding a way how to. Or, again, you could now see that and be like, man, I know that guy. I know that guy. If he can do it, I can do it. Now, how can I do that? Now, listen, if we're talking about standing on stage as a bodybuilder and 212 pounds ripped to shreds, that's a different kind of animal. But when it comes to being a better X, let's just say you want to be a better dad, right? And everybody can be a better dad. I don't care if you're the greatest dad in this world. Yep. There's things that you need to become consistent to. And these are the things, and these are the verbiage that I've learned from bodybuilding is consistency, dedication, having an end cap goal, having a start date, all these things play the part. And that's, again, coming from a kid who was dyslexic in school, was pushed to the side. I was told by my teachers that I'd never become anything. I was either find myself in jail or in the military. What a great fucking thing to tell somebody that's 15 years old.
Yeah, I remember.
You are going to either find yourself in jail or go to the military. I'm thinking to myself, what's wrong with the military? I'm a military boy. I would go in the military anyway. I was thinking, why are you talking
like it's a
like
bad
this?
Thing.
Yeah, like So, and some of the greatest people I know I've served, including yourself.
Thank you.
But this teacher literally told me in a class full of people that, and this is not just a one-off occasion, because you remember this as a kid, that I was never mouched out too much. And I remember now going back to school after winning my 3 Young Businessman of the Year awards and having an award of Prince Charles, that I went to the same class. And she was like, oh my gosh, it's so great to see you.
I'm so proud of you.
I knew you would do it. Yeah. And I stood in front of the class and I said, hey, I got you two in the front here. You sitting here for a reason? Are you the naughty guys? Every guys in the class, these two are the naughty guys, or is it all three of you, or whatever it was? And they're like, kind of like, yeah, these are the guys. I said, you guys, have you been told that you suck at life and you're not going to achieve anything? This teacher told me the same thing.
Yes.
And look where I'm at. Don't believe this old cow.
Yes.
I said a little bit more PG than that.
I know you did.
Non-PG. I'm sorry. But I think with that said, and I'm kind of going all over the place, but
no, you're good.
When you have a very humble upbringing, and if there's something that's relatable to a lot of people, and you get told things like that sits with you.
It does.
So when we're talking about me not going back, and me going on to achieve things, all these little things I've collectively put together and I put it in what I call Pandora's box.
Yep.
And every time I'm going through a rough occasion, or I'm in the gym and I've got a big leg day, I'm talking of old, I would unlock Pandora's box and I would start thinking, I would take out, okay, what's going to really get me through this workout? Because there's times, I'm running on 60 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
I got this hellish leg day that's to come, and I'm dragging ass, literally driving to the gym like a nodding dog. You know that feeling.
I do.
I'm sure many of the viewers know that feeling too that are watching this. So there's a lot of psychological warfare that took place. Yeah. And it's the same psychological warfare I had that kept me in the US, but in a different context. It wasn't the Pandora's box of, taking these things out and getting through a leg day. It was remembering the days of seeing my mum struggle to go up the stairs. It was remembering that my mum and dad had one car, and that got stolen twice. That my dad had to walk to work in the rain for weeks. It's remembering all these little things that had nothing to do with bodybuilding, but had everything to do with me taking my parents out of that living circumstances, along with my brothers, along with everybody that I could help. And now, obviously, it's gone full circle. I just had my mum and dad here a couple of days ago. Yep. I was very blessed to now fly them first class on Virgin over here and treat them the way they should be treated. But they don't live like that. They don't want to live like that. They're so humble in their ways, and I'm trying so many ways. It's like, how can I get you to move your mom and dad? And my wife is the same too. She loves them to death, and they're just very, very complacent. They love their life they live in Wales, and listen, I love my country, don't get me wrong, but they have no aspirations to move here. And I keep on telling them, it's like, listen, you're going to have a better life, a better health. I can look after it all for you. I'm in the position to look after it. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's like, no, it's not okay. And then I try guilting them with the grandkids then. Yep. Like, these kids are getting so old. You're missing out on this. Yeah, you just fly us back out and we'll come out again. It's like, you fucking just want you just want vacations. Anyways.
That's their cake and eat it too, right? That's well, so I think too, I was going to ask you earlier this, but even in thinking about it, like, you go back to Pandora's box, but like underneath it, what I think is powerful is that you have a relationship with all of the resistance. You don't pretend it's not there. Right. I think that's another thing that like I love and respect about you. That's inspiring. It's a very deep reminder for me, and fitting that the gym is called the Dragon's Lair and your podcast is called Straight Out of the Lair. But it's like, if something breaks in your life, if something is not working, if you didn't win, if you're getting punched in the face, if you're out of money, you don't put the blinders on and be like, oh, it's going to go away. You kind of rip them off and you're like, okay, this is kind of everything. And that gets you clarity to what's there. And I just, like, the more you speak, like, the more I hear it. And I've just recorded like 6 podcasts in the last month about every one of these topics. Yeah. From environmental design to having a relationship, a book that Ty is back there helping us read on the wedge. But with that though, one of the things that I think is so powerful is that you talk about loyalty. And so I'm going to ask you another question after this, but I want to hear from you, like, how do you define loyalty? How do you feel about loyalty in the lens of this world and business? Because it is something that is like the undertone of everything that you do.
Yeah. Loyalty comes with time. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm a loyal friend and this and that. And like, you being around for 5 minutes. Loyalty is something that is repetitively... I'm trying to think of the right words here, because it's a very important moral that a lot of people have kind of forgotten about. There's more, again, I guess a cultural thing for me. I'm brought up differently, and I'm very disappointed in, I guess I'm very disappointed in a lot of different people by their lack thereof. People want to say that they possess certain moral integrities, and they just don't. When it comes down to it, if they have the ability to fuck you over for $1, they will. And but then they want to make it seem like, well, you would do the same thing too. It's like, no, I wouldn't. The amount of money that I've turned down and I shouldn't have.
Yep.
Because I was loyal to somebody that wasn't loyal to me, or a business or whatever it was. I would have had more zeros in my bank account. But I done it my way. I didn't, I done what I truly believed that was moral, and also at that time, my relationship to these particular people were regarded as true friendships. Again, there's guys who have had opportunities to be on the other side, and they've taken the money, or they've taken the opportunity, or they've, it's Flex, he'll get over it. It's like, no, once you cross that line with me, it's no coming back, unfortunately, and it's known, especially within my circles. But to get me to go there is hard.
Yep.
I'll fight it, and I'll have other people around me telling me certain things, and I'm kind of like, nah, let me make sure, let me make this decision. But once it's done, it's done. It's kind of it's like that with many different things. So how I define loyalty is somebody that it's just somebody that's a good person, checking in, somebody that's loyal as a friend who turns up for X, somebody who checks in, but then there's this loyalty card that I don't know. I've kind of talked myself into this. Loyalty, I guess, is so given to me that when I'm trying to ask for it back, or what I would describe, if you said to me, Flex, how can I be a loyal person to you? Just be a good fucking friend, I guess I would say. Just, if there's opportunities there that will put us in a bind, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I want to see the best version of you.
Yep.
But if you do something and then I find out about it and you try to hide it, that makes you disloyal.
Yep.
So there's so many circumstances, especially in this fitness industry, right? It's driven on hormones.
It is.
And a lot of testosterone and fucking
and
egos.
A lot of added to the outside mix, right?
Yes.
It's fueled.
Fueled, all different angles. So if you can persevere and navigate through this treacherous fucking water, and you're still loyal, then we're good to go.
And the reason I asked is because, this is kind of like a fourth wall for me, right? So for all of my people listening, obviously it's my show.
On my show.
Yeah, on your show, the inception of this one. But in my next version, I want Tyus to have a mic.
Yes.
I need Tyus to have a mic.
Tyus.
Because I'm going to open this loop now, because everybody needs to ask about Tyus'
in the comment section.
Laser hair removal in the comment section.
Oh my God, don't, that's my story. This is my podcast.
Yeah, but he's going to tell it on your show.
Okay, good.
I'm just seeding it now, so now my entire audience is going to want Tyus to have a microphone on your show.
Hit the button. Give me the fucking horn button. Give it. Oh, it's not even playing. It was your moment to shine with the horns.
Oh, with the horns.
And we hit the horns, and we have a sound machine we never use.
I know. So the reason I say that, though, is with this fourth wall. So for those here, I'm here helping Flex a business, and we're doing some stuff. But I see it on all the sides, right? And this whole conversation has kind of been around, whether we realize it or not, what's kind of made you successful. And if you listen to it, it's actually all the principles, not the workouts, not the reps, but the real things that kept you going. And the one that I see the most of is that in this piece of your journey where these people invested in you, I've also seen an exact serendipitous journey where in that moment, as soon as you learned something, you grabbed somebody near you and invested the same thing in them. And so I get the gift of being here in your office and in your world. And I also get the gift of knowing you in the outside world and outside of here. And the things that you're talking about in loyalty, I watch you do to everybody. And so for me looking out, one of the reasons that everybody is successful around here is that everybody feels safe. Everybody feels like Flex has my back. I know all the staff members. I watch you on the cameras. I watch all the people that come into the gym. So these things that you're talking about that people gave to you, you've given back to everybody who's been around you to support you as they've held you accountable as your coach, but you breathe into them. And so in these times where it's hard or it's dark, there's this entire safety net around you that you've also created by doing it to them. And so for me,
like for everybody, we're in Flex's office right now, and behind me, there's a wall of cameras. Now, these cameras are every single angle in the gym, but like I watch Flex in here, and Flex will literally stare at the monitors and look at people. Oh, I need to go see them. I'm going to go breathe into them. Oh, got to go ask them about this person. Got to go check in on this. Got to go like this. Whether it's gym members, whether it's people walking in off the street, if you have to be out there, if people stop you when we're out in public, if it's a friend, if it's somebody who comes up to you, you literally operate from these principles in every single person. Everybody gets the time of day. Everybody feels seen. Everybody gets respected. Everybody matters around you. And I don't know if you can see it so much because you live in it, but for those listening, like for me, I can tell you that anything you ever create or anything you ever touch with these people is guaranteed to work.
Oh, wow. Come and see me in a year's time. We'll see. No.
Well, I'm coming once a month. So.
Yeah, that's true. But no, just to preface about the cameras too. I don't want people thinking that I've turned my chair around and I'm sitting like Scarface watching the fucking cameras.
He's like Dr. Evil. Yeah.
No, I have these cameras set up just to give you more of a visualization. I think I have like 18 cameras. Was it 3, 6?
But we're also in the actual gym, just for the record.
Yeah. So outside of this office, there's what is the Dragon's Lair gym, which a lot of people come from all over the world to participate in this torturous environment. And
I met 3 people from 3 different parts of the world today.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a huge blessing to sit back sometimes, and which I don't do enough. But when you hear about a story of somebody that's literally jumped on a plane from Australia and comes to the gym before they go to their hotel,
you
think, wow, that's bananas. But I also was that guy. So I created a gym that was what I had at 19, jumping off a plane, heading straight to Gold's Gym with my suitcase. And, having this magical... what would be a magazine version of my experience. But I wanted to create something similar here, and of course, knowing the culture, knowing the community, and knowing a lot of these people personally, which I know, everybody in the bodybuilding space, all at one point in time, I've either been here or I've moved here. I just found out now that Keon Pearson has moved here, and he is now one of the top 212 guys that is pushing for the title this year, and is going to be a great battle between him and Sean Clarita. And I just found out that just walking through the gym. I was like, what the hell are you doing here? I moved here. I was like, so this gym has changed people's lives by them coming here and then them going back home, and all the life that is going on in whatever state, they have now said, nah, sorry, I am picking up and I am moving myself from X to Vegas. And we truly have the United Nations here. There's so many elite athletes that train out of this gym. So everything that I thought about creating has now, in the 3 years we've had this gym, blown up into what it is and more. And it's been so organic, and you know this, George. We not put $1 into marketing. It's all been from phones and people coming in and enjoying
it. It must be from that overnight success of you being loyal to all these people over the last, 21 years. That has nothing to do with it, right? As to why you don't have paid media dollars in.
Or maybe it's the must be nice people.
Oh, it's those ones. Yeah.
It's like, if he has... or whatever the other rumors are that Ali's parents have funded this or whatever. It's my rich friend that has this company that paid. It's like, oh my God. Everybody wants to find the excuse to why people are successful. Whether it's, you put a tag on, this guy made his money and because his mom and dad give it to him. It's like, no, this guy came from fucking nothing. You don't know the story, but you want to figure out the story so it makes you feel better. And in the circumstance of me here and Ali, I've heard every kind of rumor. I've even had people ask me, like, you don't own this gym, right? It's like, my name is everywhere. Yeah, you're just the face. Oh my gosh. It's just like, but and if that makes you feel better, great. But the true story is myself and Ali put everything on. Well, we just put everything all in on this.
You did.
We seen an opportunity when we were in COVID in Florida, and we were in an open state. Life was somewhat becoming normal, air quotes, for everybody listening. And we decided to jump on a plane, and we knew there was something bigger and better for us out there. We had the private facility in Boca Raton. So I'll actually touch on that. How the Dragon's Lair created was, I was training in various gyms in Boca Raton, Florida, and every gym I went into, I became a show and tell.
Yep.
And these gym owners would bring me these new prospects for the gym. Oh, this guy's thinking of opening. Yeah, sorry. This guy thinks about joining the gym. Tell him why you should flex. I'm like, sorry, what?
Yeah.
I'm training back.
Yeah.
I'm 4 weeks out from the Olympia.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, but this has to kind of end. And it didn't. Yeah. When I turn up and there was like a meet and greet, unannounced, unknown by me. And this became
common.
I was like, this has to end. So
yep.
In the process of knowing as many people as I do in the fitness space, I have a lot of friends in the used gym equipment space, and I've given them a lot of business. So when I picked up the call, I was like, hey, I'm thinking of opening a private facility, but it's not going to be open to anybody but myself. Sounds super, sounds so egotistical, but how I convinced my mind on that.
Yeah.
Because still having the humble traits I do.
Totally.
This is going to be the investment into you've always wanted to do, and now you have the ability to do it. So I decided to rent this 10,000 square foot facility, this warehouse, no windows, no doors, in Boca Raton. You can imagine the rent. And decided to move my lifestyle around. So that money that was coming in now was invested into this shell of a building. And then I invested into used gym equipment. So I started putting things together, and then this gym was created. So when I had my friends who would come into town, say, these celebrity friends of mine were shooting a movie, they would come and train. Guess what they do, George? They would post. They would put a pin in my gym. So then I had all these random people come into my gym, which was no name. So then I realized that we had something here. So then I started putting more investment in it. I started putting the graffiti on the wall. We called it the Dragon's Lair. So it's my culture. As you can hear, I have this accent of Wales and bodybuilding merged together. The dragon is the flag, on my flag for my culture. So we called it the Dragon's Lair. And as time went on, 7 years later, we rebranded it several times. Of course, I'm a partner in Arsenal Strength. So my company is grown and scaled exponentially now, so that then became out of the old pieces, in with the brand new Arsenal Strength full line. I flew a guy in from Australia to do the graffiti, so what ended up happening was, from the outside in, a fully functioning gym. So when I would bring guys in, and this is another thing too, my mentality to bodybuilding was, my weakness is I went out and I seeked athletes who had that as a strength. So I'd bring guys in for camp, kind of like boxers or MMA guys. That's my mentality. A lot of these other guys would train with their regular training partner. I was like, okay, you are young. You are hungry. You've not tasted success yet. This is an opportunity for you, as is much of a benefit for me. So these guys would come in from Middle East, Brazil, different parts of the United States, to be in and around me for camp. And that mentality to having these young, hungry athletes kept me on the ball. It allowed me to know what it was like to chase the title as much as defend that title. So, and again, having these guys like Rafael Brando, right, who is a potential Arnold Classic winner. I say potential because he can easily win it, but it's up to him. The same thing for the Olympia. He's going to be a voice, a name that's going to be thrown in the hat of every Mr. Olympia within the next 2 years. Post 2 years. But these young and hungry guys, is what I was.
Yep.
And having them around, having them promptly turn up on time, because I'm leading from the front now, it reassures me that, okay, these guys are here for business, and I want to remain the main business person in this room. So leading from the front, but then allowing them to ask me questions on the business front. So it was very, very pleasurable for me to have somebody that was eager enough to have, two wide eyes, two wide open ears, and learn from the things that were pitfalls for me, so then they could steer the waters to have, not have the same experience as me. So let's mention Rafael Brando. This guy came to the United States, and I was his English teacher. Can you believe that? With this accent?
I know.
That guy went on to then invest in himself. He went from having an English teacher once a week to twice a week to every single day. This guy now talks shit like better than anybody I know in English. And he's an incredible business, not only a business person in bodybuilding, but also outside. He owns a carpentry business. He owns several different shows. He has all these different things that have come along from the mentality shift that he had. And that's something from his own mouth. But again, what I had from these guys was a training partner that wasn't just showing up. They were showing up to better themselves, push me. But I was getting just as much from what they were giving as what I was giving them.
Yeah, well, this is the thing about it. And for context, everybody, like, we just went back to 3 years before this gym is in its current state right now.
Yes,
and I want to paint a few pictures. No, this is important. So, like, you're like, oh, egotistical to go rent this gym. But for me, you're still defending your title right now. And for everybody, you can't go to a public gym with Flex because Flex can't work out. And no matter how polite people are, they always cross lines. They'll stare at you. They'll stand there. And it's a thing. But you're a defense. No, I'm just saying, like, you're trying to basically be the Tom Brady of the bodybuilding world. So that's like him practicing when the field's open to the public.
I guess.
Like factually, right? And so... But one of the things that I constantly hear, besides the why, besides the people, is when you get clear on something, you invest in yourself like you've achieved it. Not here, right? Like, you immerse your environment. You're like, nope, I want to be bigger. I want this next level. Okay, I need to create the space. And you're like, okay, but you also are willing to do that and then piece by piece it down. Because this gym is 3.5 years later, and it's gone through 7 or 8 iterations, if not more. But yet most people without that bodybuilding mindset will try to build the perfect gym in the first place, and then it never gets off the ground or it never works. And like, I'm saying this because, 2 years ago or whatever, you lived in Florida.
3 years, yeah.
3 years ago, right? And like, you just retired. Like, you're at the height of your career, like defending, which means your entire life is designed around eating, sleeping, training, and recovering.
Yeah.
And then you're opening a new gym, building it from the ground up, training other people, running a camp to train only your weaknesses, immersing your entire environment in it. And so, maybe like, no, it's incredible to hear, to see, and even to reflect for me on simple goals in my life, for things that are coming up right now where I'm like, oh, this is important to me, but where I'm not fully investing the environment or making it a priority. It's just a really powerful reminder of, you're going to have to do the rep, right? Like, you're going to have to take the bite. And if you're going to take the bite, you can either take a half bite, or you can make sure you bring everybody else around to load up your plate to put the biggest bite that you can. And so as you're speaking, I love it. It's so powerful to even what we spoke about earlier when you said, like, bodybuilding is about the basics over time. Like, everything you talked about the gym and opening the gym. You talked about training clients. You own a clothing company, technically 2 of them. Yeah. You have a strength brand company. You technically host television shows now. You're a podcast host. And every single thing that you touch, irregardless of its physical products and manufacturing, which you guys had to figure out. If it's drop shipping, if you just had to figure it out. You guys are opening the gym and then figuring out after how to put the furniture inside, right? And so, like, it's kind of crazy and cool to think about because like the undertone of what even opened it is like, what is the foundational pieces that have kind of made you successful? And so it is kind of cool to think about, like, even for me to hear and collapse the timeline to like where you are sitting right now in this gym.
Yes, it's crazy. Listen, George, me and my wife, we never went into this world to be like, oh, let's be gym owners. Some of these people, that's what they will want to do.
Facts.
We honestly, in fact, like when we had the... Yes,
I don't think any sane person would want to be like, I want to go open a gym.
Oh, a lot of people, a lot of them crazy people I know. But we went into this, well, my wife supported me in the madness of, hey, this is where we're at. We need to do this. And she was like, okay, I'll support you whenever you do. And as things started to evolve, that's the key word, evolve, we realized that, wow, okay, we need to invest a little more in this. So we done so many different variations and all changes in the gym to a gym that would not see the eyes to many. We done it because we evolved so much so fast in that 10,000 space. I had another company that was D to D. Sorry, it was what was it? Yeah, actually, it was two companies in there. I had my Flextronic Productions, which was shipping all my merchandise out.
Yeah.
And then I had another company that was shipping out to various different businesses, B2B. But it was like kind of drop ship stuff, right? Well, as that scaled, we needed more room. So then I cut into the gym a little bit. And I was like, oh, my gosh, I have to build this fake wall. And I put barbed wire on top of it. It was truly like... exciting for me to create this mess because I was going to do something, a project from it. So there were so many different evolutions in that gym. And then we realized, okay, we need to make this into now what looks like a gym. Kind of a pro and a con because we filmed from there as if it was a showroom, but then it gave the false illusion for people that it was an open gym. So we have had every kind of story where people have driven all the way from Orlando, which is a couple hours away, all the way from Miami, which is like an hour away.
Yep.
And these people would knock on the doors, depending on the athletes we had there. Like Raphael would bring in all these athletes, fans, stroke regular people who spoke nothing but Portuguese. Obviously, South Florida is a hub for people from Brazil, but they couldn't speak a word of English. And then I had somebody from the Middle East, and they would come in on vacation, would drive from whatever else. They're massive fans of the Middle East of bodybuilding. It's sort of same as Brazil. And they would plead, please, crying on the door. And I'm like, oh, I'm such a sucker, come in. But you can't train. You know, they would come in and film, and they would wipe their eyes. We'd take pictures. But this was becoming more and more of a regular occurrence. And myself and my wife knew we had something special when we caught people sleeping in the cars outside.
Yeah.
And these guys kept on, different guys, of course, would sleep in their cars and wait for athletes to turn up. And one day I got there early enough, and I was at Dallas, I was training with RIP. But I messaged him, and I was like, hey, listen, do not bring that loud-ass car anywhere near the front of the gym. You got to walk. He lives across the street, too. He'd drive. You would have to walk. So the time he got to the gym, he said, 300 pounds, huffing and puffing. And he was managed to evade the sleeping people in the car. But, of course, we woke him up after the fact and said, hey, you want to cut, whatever, you waiting for us. But we knew we had something. And, of course, COVID happened. One of my best friends lived out here in Vegas. He was saying, hey, Vegas is missing a gym. I knew this. But it kind of like the seed I planted. So myself and Ali jumped on. This is like the mid-COVID.
Yep.
Rented a car. Everything was so weird. And we drove up the Vegas Strip, and we were like, this is like a ghost town.
I drove up it in May because I bought a car in Phoenix and drove it to Mammoth.
God.
But I'll never forget because I stopped and parked the Jeep in the middle of the strip and stood on the roof and recorded videos for Instagram for like 30 minutes and didn't see a human. It felt like I Am Legend with Will
I was
Smith.
just about to say, I Am Legend
That's
is
what
the
it felt
closest thing.
Yeah.
You can't, you couldn't, even if you had $100 million budget to shut down the strip right now, you couldn't have achieved that because there would be somebody in that shot. And when I tell you, there was not a soul. You could, right?
Nobody.
So me and Ali came here, and there was a lot of FUD in the water. A lot of people be like, oh, this is life now as we know. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? this is going to be over soon.
Yeah.
So we came out here twice. On the second occasion, I found my house and I found this building, which is 2 buildings, and I said I want them both. So we then started making plans to come out here, and I set up the team here from afar, satellite. I was like, you guys want to work? Let's go. Let's blast the walls, paper the windows, and nobody will know you're in here. Come through the back door, and let's work. Let's go to work. So I built this up in COVID.
Yep.
So when it started lightening up, your obviously connection to California is rife. So it started lightening up. We realized, well, shall I say, I knew that as soon as I tell this circle of people, not physically on Instagram, just this circle of people, my circle of people knew. You know, my close ride or die knew. And then there's another circle behind that, and they're the don't tell anybody but Flex has moved you.
Yeah.
People, which still kept it, within close circles. But I knew the next group, if I was to tell that, there would be a lot of calls coming in. So when I was ready for that, I told the don't say anything buts, and then I told the outside circle, which still think they're in the circle, them people.
Yeah.
And they were like, bro, I'm moving. And that's what happened. We literally had 9 Mr. and Miss Olympias that moved to this gym. Tail end of COVID. Of course, Florida is kicking at this point in time,
Yep.
But they moved here, George, and we had such a great grand opening. The place was wrapped around. I mean, we weren't mask Nazis here. For us, if you wanted to wear a mask, it was up to you. If you wanted to, for us, we kind of walked that thin line, the policy. But
yeah.
We knew that COVID would be, what would you see, weaned off eventually, right?
Yeah.
I got to pick my words carefully or you get more fucking demonetized.
We don't monetize.
Okay, good.
Anyways.
Okay. So,
my mouth,
had I known that.
My mouth demonetizes everything.
Had I known that, but no. We truly knew then that this was, well, we knew, I was so confident. Some of that delusional confidence too, right? That this is going to work. And so was Ali. When you're around them people, you're not having them, oh, maybe because that plants seeds. I'm not around them people. I don't like to be around them people. And that's one of the reasons why, I love my parents to death, but they are what happens if?
Yep.
What happens? And I'm like, if it does, fuck it, whatever, we'll deal with it. But we are moving. We are going for this. And your Vegas is not what Vegas is. So the naysayers, the doubters and everything else, they were like, you're going to get caught up in Las Vegas. It's like, listen, Las Vegas is one street. Yep. It's incredible. Don't get me wrong. But that is a distraction.
Yep.
It's also an attraction.
Yep.
So using what the attraction element is to link into the business and not the distraction of what they couldn't be to the business is knowing that straight away. I'm also a family guy. I got 2 kids. My versions of the strip were running around in the 20s.
Yep.
I had a great time. I also know that Vegas has a reputation for taking people with an open mindset and flipping it on themselves, and you find yourself in a very, I would say, a hamster wheel of bad decisions fast.
Yep.
But again, that's life.
Yeah.
You can have a couple of drinks and have a great time, or you can go overboard and have an absolute disastrous, I blanked out.
Mm-hmm.
Vegas is the same way. Use Vegas for what it is. Don't get caught up in the rat race. Mm-hmm. Vegas is a very, how do you describe Tyus, Vegas?
You can just yell at Tyus. Here's the mic.
How do you describe, see, this is why we need
In most places, it rains, it wipes the grime away. In Vegas, it just makes the grime glisten.
Oh,
that's
look, I see.
This
is why we need a fucking mic for this guy.
Tyus, yes.
Tyus.
My audience is going to petition the Tyus mic too.
Yes, give us a couple of...
Yeah, and even another reminder too, though, Flex, as we start to land this, the even the mindset piece, you're so intentional about what you'll even allow into your space when you get clear.
Yeah.
Right? Because what you have is when you, and what I love is, because on my podcast, I talk about whys all the time, right? It's the core foundation of what I do. But I also explain to people that when you really have a why, you have a why, When people start doubting you and you're just not interested in listening to it.
Yeah.
Right? That's how you know you have a why. If you don't have a why, you'll start to let that in and you'll start to believe it, and it will start to change your behaviors. And so like even like every single thing that you talk about, every single thing that you've had success with, every single thing comes down to like immersiveness, protecting that environment, having people that are honest with you about your potential, not your current state of being.
Yeah.
And like holding you to it, right? And then like supporting and doing that. Like I think it's incredible. So I want to ask like a legitimate question around this, because I think there's a lot of people, myself included, that throw goals out, throw things out, and love the idea of them and start working at them, but never really do the diligence to like, is this how I work this backwards? Is this like what's going to get me on that stage? Right? Like, how do you coach so many people, you talk to so many people, but there's so many people, and every entrepreneur, every person listening to this, bodybuilder or not, you know, life's going to get hard, right? Like you talk about your story like it was so effortless, right? And then you do the math and you're like, oh, you were couch surfing for 3-4 years and you were literally not getting paid for 8, well a pro. And then all of that to get your, you know, first win, and everyone's like, oh, must be so nice. And you're like, yeah, the 9 years where I was getting punched in the mouth and decimated over and over. And so like, I think it's important to recognize too, that like, you know, when you call that inner circle, like that inner circle exists because of the things that you talked about on this podcast from 20 years ago. And so like, what do you think are some of the most important things that people should focus on in their day when it comes to like really setting themselves up to win?
Just demand the best version of yourself. I'm surrounded with people who, okay, let's just use Tyus as an example, right?
Perfect.
Me and Tyus started working together, and I knew that this guy was going to bring the best version of me out on the podcast. Because, listen, this is a space that scared the shit out of me, just like bodybuilding. If I knew that bodybuilding came with a mic and they told me, it's like, hey, tell us how you done this, I probably wouldn't have done bodybuilding.
Yep.
You know, I grew up with a speech impairment, dyslexic. I was fearful of jumping on a mic. But in close circles amongst my peers, I was Jack the Lad. I was the shit talker. I was the smallest guy in the field with the biggest mouth.
Yep.
But when it came to, you know, tell us how you done it, I'd be like, don't give me the mic. So knowing that these things scared me, it's like, okay, why am I scared, or why am I apprehensive about doing this? I just said it, right? It's discomfort.
Yep.
But all my life, to get to an end goal, you've got to put yourself through discomfort, and you've got to be uncomfy until it becomes comfy. I love doing podcasts now. You know, I work with Tyus. You know, we do 1, 2, 3, 9 podcasts sometimes, Tyus, right? In 1 week. We won't go there again, no? But one thing that I do after every episode is I ask Tyus, okay, how can I improve on that? What did I do wrong? What did I do right? He keeps me accountable. I keep him accountable. We want the best product for what we're doing right now. So one of the things that I said to myself when the topic of podcast came out and me doing my podcast was investment. Once I invest myself in it and hard-earned money that I never had, and I go back to that poor man's mentality, right? It's not what I have now. It's what I never had. Is spent on something. That's me all in.
Yep.
I bought the mics. I bought the mixer. You know, Tyus keeps on making me spend more and more money all the time. He's a freaking bottomless pit of money.
We love tech, man.
Yes,
we love tech.
He does. But if it's 1 month old, it's too old for him. You got to buy another one now. No, he's not that bad, don't he? But we have obviously got the studio that we're working on right now. But that was, you got to remember, that wasn't even a conversation. I just wanted to get on a sofa and get through the anxiety of.
Yep.
I got through that. I went in straight away. The first episode was me making the statement I was going to retire on my own podcast.
Yep.
The second one was kind of, you know, reassuring everybody. Yes, don't worry. That was a true episode. The third one was the Hodge twins. And we went on and hit the fucking ground running. So now the next evolution of where the podcast goes is the room behind me right now. There's going to be very similar scenario to this. Is a sit down, and then we're going to have a studio that's being built. So to answer your question, which was
what are the most
demanding the
important
best
things?
version
Demand
of
the best,
myself.
yeah.
So I demand the best version of myself every single day. Listen, there's some days that I don't get the best version of myself. There's something that happens. But I think it's keeping myself accountable by having certain people in my life. It's keeping myself accountable for certain goals I have to achieve. It's not if, it's have to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
It's also having a plan that is so pie in the sky that only you know. Right? People say, "Oh, put it out into the world." I do believe in law of attraction, like in saying it and then doing it. But there's certain things that are so obscene, like in terms of, like, bro, like there's no way. You have to have them. I truly believe, like the life that I'm living right now is the fucking delusion that I had when I was a kid. I was like, I want to have a house, and I want to have a pool, and I want to have, like, these are kind of like, these are assets, or these are, what would it be, like, these are things that when you're a kid in Wales and you see somebody on a movie.
Oh, they're like dreams.
Dreams.
Yeah, dreams.
That is a good word. I should have. Dreams. The fuck? Thank you. The most basic fucking
Come
word.
on, English is your second language, really.
Technically, it's my first, by the way, John.
Well, I don't think so.
But I can't use this on the podcast. Somebody might call me out. Yeah, I know. But yeah, it's just truly a dream to sit back and be like this kid now and be like, oh, I want this and I want that. These things, these bucket list things I've been able to achieve, but they're objects, right? Now I'm trying to change people's lives, whether it's through the podcast, whether it's in the gym, whether it's, having XYZ. So that's what I'm truly enjoying right now, is being able to talk to people and be like, hey, you talked about that. I went through it too. And listening to you, now I made this step in this direction, or whatever variable. How many times has it happened since you and I have been together?
Yep.
Like for you,
mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm enjoying right now. I'm into a new chapter of life. I've learned a lot from bodybuilding. I had to really work on myself in silence before I physically went and done, the next chapter of moving on and working on my ego. I had to have an ego death. Like with the bodybuilding side of things, I knew that there was this monster that I created that had to turn up every day. And I had to. There was these non-negotiables
Yep.
that to become the champion, you sign with blood and sweat and tears. But I'm not that guy anymore. So to have their mentality and now transcend into business guy, new dad, fill in the blanks.
Yep.
That is now not the mentality to have as a Mr. Olympia, right?
Yeah.
So I guess that's it now. Is now I'm into new chapters. Obviously, I just mentioned I'm a dad of two. My daughter is turning 8 in November, and my son just turned 1. So having these new responsibilities and having the businesses and having all these other cool endeavors that I'm working on, plus other things that I can't even talk about in the podcast that are way outside the scope, are so very exciting. But again, I guess the drive I have for these new endeavors is the same exciting drive that I've always had for bodybuilding. And I was always worried about replacing that X. And I'm now finding my feet in, I think I'm finally, I know I'm in a new chapter now. I'm finding these new and exciting things to replace what was my everything before.
Yeah, I'd say you're in a new book.
New book.
Yeah. I'd say this was the 39th year. Both of us were in a new book.
Yeah.
We're writing.
We're excited for the new fucking book
like
to be
writing.
written.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
Yes.
Because I forgot what it was like to have ridiculous, audacious fucking dreams again. And I'm like, you know what?
Love it.
I haven't let myself do that for a while, right? And it's great. And I love that you talk about it too, because to kind of land the show, like even when you talked about like dreaming from a kid from Wales, like the pool, the thing, right? Like you were looking for possibility to change what you believed you could achieve. But then the reason you achieved it is because you never wanted the pool. You loved who you were becoming in the process. And you kept pursuing that. And even when you talk about like you and Allie and you're like, oh, we don't know. It's like, well, you have all the things because you never really set out to do all the things because your whole life has been a bodybuilder. And so the thing is the 212 shredded on stage, which has to be a byproduct of these sets, reps, diets, and workouts for the next 12, 18, 16, sometimes years, months or weeks. And so the amount of fortune cookie knowledge in this podcast, like if anybody listening to this, if you just even go a little deeper in Flex's story or put the pieces together, you'll hear a 20-year roadmap of like what it took to be that. And everybody wants to be the Mr. Olympia, the one with the most Instagram followers, the one with the most lead magnets, the one that gets the most products, the one with most customers. But then the question that you have to be willing to ask yourself if you're listening to this is like, if you say you really want that, are you integrally willing to put in the time, the reps, and the work to get that blood contract in writing? Because to be the best means that you have to want it more than anybody else wants it and be willing to push when nobody else will push. And it's also okay to not want it that bad and realize that half of that is still 1,000 times better than what you would have been before. But you got to keep biting it. And so now, just everybody, I think if you haven't listened to my episode on Flex's show, you should. But you and Tyus are the comedic relief. And tell everybody about your show real quick so we can wrap this one.
So I have a Straight Out the Lair podcast.
Yep.
And first of all, before I go any further, thank you very much. I agree 100% in what you said.
Yeah.
I know both you and I love to talk, so this podcast is like fucking 2 hours already, I'm sure.
No, I got time.
Okay, well, Tyus doesn't, so...
I'm trying to end it for Tyus now.
Yeah. But we have a Straight Out of the Lair podcast here, which is shot at the Dragon's Lair, hence Straight Out of the Lair. We have some incredible guests. I'm very fortunate that in the multiple years that I was a champion, I actually had a life long before that. Yeah. And I knew and met a lot of these people who have now become celebrities in their own right, in their own fields, in their own genres, way outside the scope of bodybuilding and way outside the worlds of bodybuilding. So I love to get athletes, business owners, investors, entrepreneurs, just incredibly savage people in their own right on my podcast. So we've had people all the way from Alex Amosi to Jelly Roll to Frank Mir to Jay Cutler to yourself.
Yep, the lineup's
and
massive.
Many other people that have all kind of been in the same seat that you've been in and done incredible great podcasts. For me, I love the mindset element, just like you. Yep. I love to ask the questions of what made you great? Yep. What was the straw that broke the camel's back? And where were you in the process? Did you have a great experience in life, or did you go through heartache, which is always the case? Mm-hmm. The most common sort of overarching sort of storyline to everything is trauma. Yep. Trauma is a big part in any successful person's life because you have to turn to something when you have physically nothing left. You're exhausted. No caffeine or a cup of coffee or an energy drink is going to propel you into new realms when memories or tapping into this mental fortitude will. Yep. So that element is always the common thread in everything I do. And success, when you use that trauma correctly and tap into that, is always going to be the end result. So you have yours, I have mine. Many, I would dare say all of the guests that I've had sitting in the same seat of you, all have had the same type of drive that have all come from that experience, that beginning, whatever it is. Yeah. And I love tapping into that. We've had a lot of tears on that sofa, yourself included.
Myself included.
But we've also had guys that are 3 times your size that have sat in that fucking seat and cried just like the best of them.
I love it.
So not that I kind of promote tears, but I think
do.
that
We do.
Well,
every episode.
Well, I can't say that.
Well, no, on my show. We're on my show.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. On my show. I keep forgetting. On my show, we don't kind of push tears, but we do like them.
No. Everybody comes on a show to have fun. We just don't tell everybody. But on my show, like, I'm just honest. I'm like, no, we cry over here.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on mine, we've had a lot of incredible stories told that are followed with tears.
Yeah.
And if we get there, we get there.
Yeah.
I do appreciate the honest and vulnerable sides that so many of these people have brought, including yourself. Because listen, for me, to let that guard down is big. You know, a lot of these guys may have never talked about certain things or even told a story. And them exclusivities have been done on my show many, many times. So I'm truly appreciative. And you know, you are one of them guys who've come on and talked about a lot of the stuff which your viewers are very privy about. So I appreciate you on that, mate. So I don't know if that's landing the plane or not.
That's landing the plane. So, and here's the thing. It's so great because the undertow of all of this is like, if you really want to win this game, you got to kind of have a relationship with your own dragon. And so you got to learn it. You got to know it. You got to know what makes it breathe fire. You got to know what makes it tick. And you have to have a relationship with it. Consistency is going to win over time, right? Surround yourself with incredible people. Get really clear on your goals, but give yourself a why that you're willing to stand up no matter how hard it gets. Have people that hold you accountable and just keep taking bites out of it every single day. And for everybody listening, I highly recommend Flex's podcast. I listen to it personally. Most of my friends are on it. I've been on it. But it's incredible, and Flex is better at asking questions than I am anyways. But he gets to the root of it, and it's incredibly moving. But I will say, to edify and anchor this, what you consume, what you listen to, who you listen to dictates how you see the world. And so listening to people's podcasts like Flex's and these people that are honest and open about what it took is that when you study mindset, you're going to realize that it lands in the same place, that no matter how many times you look, you're going to end up with the same answers that we ended up with today. So the reason I ask is so more people remove the oxygen from my excuses to thinking there's an easier way for me to do it. And so that's why I love having the Flexes in my life. I'm like, no, I'm done with that set. He's like, no, you have 12 more reps, motherfucker. And I'm like, oh, I can't put my suitcase in the overhead tonight. Thank you. Appreciate it, right?
Bye, George.
Bye. And so I will say this, if you are in Vegas ever, make sure you come to the gym. I train here when I'm here. It's absolutely incredible. It's the Dragon's Lair in Vegas. Check out Flex's podcast. We will be doing a round 2 on mine with him. We'll do a round 2 on his with me. And I'll be sharing a lot of stuff with Flex's stuff as well, the clothing brands, things like that. We have a lot of stuff in the pipeline. So
it's a lot of cool stuff, my
friend. It's incredibly dope. Yes. And Tyus, thank you for being the silent, bald-headed brother support. My little...
Hairless.
Yeah,
that's another story for another time.
Yeah, we'll keep seeding the hair thing for Flex's podcast.
Thank God he's faceless. Oh no, you've actually seen. Yeah, oh, you weren't seen. Okay, look at this guy. He's dancing around the camera.
It. So for everybody listening, I mean it. Go Merson. Flex is tagged on my Instagram. You'll see him tagged in the show notes. Make sure you check it out. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being here, man. I absolutely appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming to my podcast, and thank you for having me on yours and yours on mine.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, the inception of this is all insane. So for everybody listening, watching, this has been another episode of the Mind of George Show. Remember that relationships will always beat algorithms, especially the most important one, which is you. If you needed any more evidence besides, the 7-time, best in the world who just told you that for an hour and a half. So maybe take some notes. But you'll either hear me in the next episode or you'll see me in your eyeballs. But either way, we are out.
Out.